Hello and welcome to Talking Music, where every song has a story. My name's Paul, and the song we're talking about today, a rock classic, Free, All Right Now. The late 1960s, early 70s saw a lot of rock music being recorded, and more of it finding its way onto the radio, especially in the UK. America was a little further advanced where rock music was concerned, because that type of music had been mostly shunned on daytime programs on the radio in the UK because of its so-called polarising effect. The feeling among the establishment was that rock music was synonymous to long hair, unkempt, shabby artists, screeching and screaming rather than singing, loud guitar riffs that just went on and on and on with no direction. And then there'd be the mind-altering substances too, and all of that alcohol. It was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And when you heard that term, you knew that the people using it were thinking mostly about rock music and rock musicians. And you knew it went on in pop music too, but there, well, the music wasn't so loud, was it? And what is more, you could easily discern a melody, so that was okay then. But rock music, through all of that, was very popular because it rocked, and there were many who more than liked it. To be a rock star was deemed more prestigious as well than being a pop star, and there were some songs that were gateway rock tunes for people who wanted to know more, for those who were curious. All Right Now is one of those records. It's rock music, all right, but for the time, it was the acceptable face, or should I say sound, of rock music. Free was a band formed in London in 1968. Lead singer Paul Rodgers, lead guitarist Paul Kossoff, Simon Kirke on drums, and Andy Fraser on bass. They became known for their live shows, but weren't commercially successful really until this record came along in 1970. These guys were young in 68 though. They were all teenagers, 17, 18 years of age, with bassist Andy Fraser, the youngest, at 15. But it was this young 15-year-old, a trained classical pianist, who was instrumental in the creation of the song. After a poor gig in 1970 at a college in Durham, the band left the stage to the sound of their own footsteps because the audience applause had died down almost immediately. There was only about 30 in the audience anyway. In the dressing room afterwards, the band were miserable, each giving their thoughts as to how they should move forward. It was agreed that their music was too one-paced, and they needed some songs that were more explosive. Andy Fraser picked up his guitar and played a riff that had been going through his head for a while, and spent the next 20 minutes or so working on it before presenting it to the band. Musically, All Right Now was written in that dressing room on that night, and it was now down to Paul Rodgers to finish the lyrics. Andy had given him a title though, All Right Now, with the original meaning of the song being a pick-me-up to the band, saying, "Hey, tomorrow's another day, and we'll forget about tonight's gig." The song's lyrics came easily to Paul Rodgers. His story for the song was about a guy meeting a girl and then trying to get her back to his place. There are some cool, or maybe the right word to use for back then, there are some hip words to the lyric. His opening gambit to the girl, "Hey, what's your name? Maybe we can see things the same," is rather hip, don't you think? And when he gets her back to his place, he tries to talk about love because he thinks that's what she wants to hear. But she's more than equal to him when she says, "Love? Lord above, now you're trying to trick me in love." These lines would have appealed also to the big feminist movement ongoing at the time.
I actually wrote the chorus first, and Andy went away with that and came back with the dang, do dang, dang.
I think that the guitar chords were like me trying to impersonate Townsend, because he was like the best chord player, and Paul wrote the lyrics and the verses really pretty quick.
I wrote the lyrics waiting for the band to pick me up one day. I was living in Holborn, and I thought, okay, what do I need? And there she stood in the street, right, smiling from her head to her feet. God, she's a big smile, you know. I said, "Hey, what's this?" Maybe she's in need of a... You know, it just flowed out like that, and I had it, really, then, right there, and I wrote the whole thing out. And I think we probably did it that night. And again, we were doing the 245s, and we opened with it. And there wasn't too many people in at that point in time. There was probably a handful of girls got up and started to dance, And towards the very end of the evening, which would have been some 2 hours later, I asked the audience if they had any special requests, and a bunch of people started shouting, "Do that first song you started with." And that's really good for a brand new song. So we did it again. And I felt then, this has probably got something. We had a great band. We were writing our own material. We had a new hit record company. And it was really only a matter of time before we came up with the big one, I suppose, looking back with hindsight. And the big one was, of course, All Right Now.
The song really took off when Free performed it at the Isle of Wight Festival in August 1970. Some 600,000 rock fans attended, and some hearing the song for the very first time, and it acted as a bit of a catalyst for the album Fire and Water, as well as achieving big success as a single in its own right.
Fire and water must have made you their daughter.
Fire and Water was the zenith. It was the peak of the cohesion that Free enjoyed, because we were still very much a gang, and I think you'll see in various chronicles of the day that we were this tough little band. We came in, we didn't say boo to anyone, we just smoked a lot of dope, didn't drink before a show, and we jammed in the dressing room, and by the time we hit the stage we were this unified band, and we really tore up the place, and we were like that for I don't know how many shows a year we did. You got to remember, Free was started in the mid-68 and went through to All Right Now, Fire and Water, and then Highway, and then split. So it was around for less than 3 years. But by the time Fire and Water came along, we were rocking. I mean, we were one of the best bands in the land.
This is how it fared in the charts. It charted on the UK singles chart in the summer of 1970. This was its peak position, number 2 on the 4th of July 1970, and it stayed at number 2 on the charts for 5 weeks. It was held off the top by the monster that was Mungo Jerry's In the Summertime, and when that fell from the top, it was Elvis who took over the chart top spot with The Wonder of You. So Free, All Right Now, always the bridesmaid, never quite the bride. Ended up being the 7th bestseller of 1970, 400,000 records sold in the UK alone, which is substantial. A couple of months later, it was charting in America, and it reached a top 5 position, number 4 in fact, on the US Billboard Hot 100 on the 17th of October 1970. It sold 750,000 copies stateside. It was their first and sadly their last hit in the US. None of their other singles were released there, but it went on to be the 27th bestseller in the American charts for 1970. Elsewhere, it was top 10 all over Europe. Some interesting facts about the song. The single was released at 4 minutes and 14 seconds, edited down from the 5-minute 31 version on the album. This was usually the case for singles. They didn't tend to be more than 3.5 minutes long back in these days, so they would be more easily played on radio, not only in the UK but also in the States and across Europe for that matter. But 4 minutes 14 seconds was fairly lengthy for that particular time, 1970. And then 20 years later, in 1990, it was recognised by ASCAP, the American Society of Composers, Authors and Publishers, for having 1 million plays on American radio. And this was up to 3 million in the year 2006, so it was keeping its popularity. The song has been used commercially a number of times, much to the distaste of Paul Rodgers. In 1990, it featured in a TV ad for Wrigley's chewing gum on UK TV. Island Records owned the rights to all the Free songs, so the band had no say. But one time it was used for an advert on foot odour powder, and Paul Rodgers complained so much the ad was eventually taken off there. And in 2010, it topped the Planet Rock poll of greatest ever rock singles. It's a forever hit, this. Written by a 15-year-old and sung by a guy with one hell of a voice. It was one of the earliest singles to be recorded in stereo and kept both rockers and popsters happy.
Paul and Andy really became this great writing team.
It was a conscious decision on my part. I remember sitting down and saying, look, if you look at Jethro Tull, if you look at Cream, and you look at Jimi Hendrix, all those guys, the thing that distinguishes them is they have their own material. That makes them different from everyone else. What we ought to do is phase out the blues and replace it with all our own material, which we then proceeded to do. But it kind of backfired on me after a while, because after a while I realized I really missed the blues, and I knew that Paul Kossoff wanted to play the blues as well and missed some of that. And I tried to reintroduce it back into the band. I couldn't do it. There was a lot of resistance. And really, I think that's where we started to disintegrate.
Their follow-ups, Wishing Well, My Brother Jake and A Little Bit of Love, were also good, in fact nearly as good, but this is the one they'll be remembered for. It's just a shame the band split so early. Free and All Right Now. And that's it for another Talking Music video where every song has a story. Do subscribe to the channel because we've got many more songs that we've featured, and maybe your favourite is among our archive. So all you need to do is subscribe to the channel and the rest of the videos are yours. So hoping to catch you in another video. Till that time, I wish you well. Bye-bye.